The stars above the grand hall of the Zyran Empire shimmered through the crystal ceiling. Nobles sat around, their glowing robes reflecting the soft purple light. Their eyes were not on the war council or the trade meeting. No, today was a different kind of entertainment. Princess Sayla stood still in the center. Her silver skin shimmered faintly, and her violet eyes stared forward, unblinking. The court had once praised her beauty, her grace, and her bloodline. But all that changed the day. The healers declared her barren. No eggs, no chance of children, no legacy. In the Zyran Empire, that was the end. "We send her to the humans," one noble said with a smirk. "A gift of friendship, of course," the others chuckled. Even her mother, the Empress, gave no protest. There was no place for an infertile princess in their plans, so Sayla was dressed in royal robes, given a transport pod, and sent across the stars. Her destination was a quiet human colonia, small planet on the edge of Alliance space. Be delivered to a man named Ethan. He wasn't famous, not a leader, not a soldier, just an ambassador, living alone on a green world full of quiet lakes and forests. Perfect, the court thought. Let her fade away there. Let her be forgotten. When the pod landed, Ethan was outside, tending to a small garden. He looked up as the hatch opened and froze when he saw her, tall, graceful, and clearly royal. For a moment he didn't know what to say. Hello?" said slowly, brushing dirt off his hands. Sayla stepped out, holding a scroll written in both languages. It explained the honor of this gift. Ethan read it twice. He could read between the lines. It wasn't a gift, it was an insult. She waited for him to command her, to treat her like a token. Instead, Ethan folded the scroll and looked at her kindly. "You probably don't want to be here," he said. "But I won't treat you badly. You're welcome to stay as long as you like. You'll have your own room, if you want to leave someday." "You're free to?" Sayla didn't reply. She didn't know how to respond. For the first time in weeks, she felt confused, not because someone was cruel, but because someone was kind. He led her into the small home. It wasn't royal, but it was warm. Soft lights, wooden floors, quiet music playing in the background. He showed her a guest room and said, "This is yours." She stood silently for a long time after he left. The next few days passed slowly. Sayla stayed quiet, observing. Ethan made food, simple but tasty. He talked about Earth, things like rain, trees, animals, and music. He never asked her for anything, never touched her without asking, never treated her like property. She watched him plant vegetables one morning and finally spoke. "Why do you live alone?" He smiled without looking up. "I like peace. I used to work in the big stations, politics, meetings, noise. Now I just grow food, read books, and look at stars." She tilted her head. "You are not like the others," he laughed. "Some say that's a good thing, some say it's not." After that, she started joining him in small things, planting, cooking, walking by the lake. She told him stories from her childhood, old Zyran myths. He listened with real interest. At night, she would sit on the porch and stare at the stars. Not in sadness, but in wonder. She hadn't done that in years. One evening she asked, "Did you know I was sent to you as a joke?" Ethan looked at her gently. "Yeah, I figured." "Do you not feel insulted?" He shook his head. "They can joke all they want. But you're not a joke. You're a person, and a good one." Her heart felt tight, like something forgotten was. Waking inside over the next few weeks, she began to smile more. Her steps felt lighter. She helped paint the walls of the house. She sang soft siren songs in the garden. Ethan began to learn some of the alien words one morning. As they were fixing a broken solar panel, Sayla looked at Ethan and said, "I feel different here, in a good way," he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes, like, I matter." That night, she sat by the lake alone and whispered a short prayer, not to a god, but to the stars. She wasn't sure what she was asking for. Maybe peace. Maybe meaning. She didn't know yet that something inside her body had begun to change. Quiet and small, impossible by Zyran standards. But not impossible to the stars, and the stars were listening. The soft wind moved through the trees as the morning sun touched the small house. Birds chirped in the distance, and dew sparkled on the grass. Selah stood by the window, watching the world outside. Her long silver hair was tied loosely, and her eyes looked peaceful, something rare for her kind. She had lived on this planet for over 2 months now. At first, she had felt lost. Now, she felt something else. Not just safe, not just calm. She felt real, like she wasn't just a shadow. Left behind by her people, Ethan walked into the kitchen, still drying his hair with a towel. "Morning," he said with a sleepy smile. "You're up early." "I didn't sleep much," Selah said softly, but not in a bad way. "My thoughts were full. Want breakfast?" "Yes, I'll help." Like they'd done it 100 times. She chopped vegetables. He made eggs and toast. It was simple, but it felt good. They ate on the porch, watching the sun rise higher. For a while, neither spoke. They didn't need to. After breakfast, they walked through the garden. Ethan checked the tomatoes while Selah picked herbs. When they returned inside, Selah sat at the table and looked at Ethan seriously. "You know," she said, "on my world, people like you are rare." Ethan looked up. "What do you mean someone kind, someone patient? Someone who doesn't see others as tools or problems?" Chuckled. "I wasn't always like this. Life taught me to slow down." "I'm glad it did," she said, and there was something warm in her voice. Over the next few days, Selah felt strange. At first she thought she was just tired. Then she noticed her sense of smell was sharper. Food tasted stronger, she felt. Dizzy in the mornings, and a little warmer than usual. She didn't say anything, not yet. One evening, she stood in front of the mirror, touching her own stomach. Her skin felt different, her pulse deeper. She was afraid to believe it. It was just a dream. But her body, it was whispering something. Ethan found her staring into the lake again that night. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I think," she said slowly, "something inside me is changing." He looked worried. "Should we call a doctor?" "Maybe," she whispered, "but I'm afraid of what they'll say." He reached out gently. "You're not alone here, Selah. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Those words made her chest ache in a strange, soft way. She nodded, holding back tears. The next morning, Ethan contacted a human doctor from the colony. She arrived by shuttle, a kind older woman named Dr. Harper. She smiled warmly at Selah and spoke with kindness and respect. "It's probably just the local food," Dr. Harper said, as she scanned Selah with her tools. "Some species. Need time to adjust?" Then she stopped, stared at the screen, blinked twice. "What is it?" Ethan asked. Dr. Harper turned slowly. "Princess, you're pregnant." Selah froze. Her fingers trembled. She almost dropped the glass in her hand. "That's not possible," she whispered. I cannot." Dr. Harper looked confused. "The scan is clear. You're in your early stages. It's real." Selah backed away slowly, her hand on her chest. "No, the Empire's best healers tested me. They said I had no life inside. They said I would never. Ethan stepped toward her. "Selah, it's okay. We'll figure it out. We're not alone in this." But Selah was crying now. Not out of sadness, but from shock, from joy, from fear, all mixed together. For years, she had believed she was broken. Now her body said otherwise. "How?" she whispered. "How could this happen?" Dr. Harper smiled gently. "Maybe the Empire was wrong. Maybe something changed. Or maybe love made a way." Selah looked at Ethan, her eyes full of questions. He said nothing, only stepped closer and held her hand. The news spread quickly. At first it was quiet, just whispers among scientists. Then word reached the alien empire. The joke they had played now turned into a miracle. Princess Selah, once declared barren, was now carrying life. That life was part human. Some in the empire were horrified. Others were amazed. Messages came in from nobles and doctors and officials. Some demanded proof. Some called it a lie, but some started to believe. On Earth and other allied planets, news channels reported the story with awe. A child of two worlds, a future of hope. SAE, stayed in the house, trying to understand. Her own heart. She stood by the window often, one hand resting on her stomach. It still didn't feel real. Do you regret coming here? Ethan asked her one evening. She looked at him, her eyes soft. No, this place gave me a second life, and maybe a future. He nodded. Whatever you choose, I'll be here. A small smile formed on her lips. I know. They didn't. Need to say more? That night, under a quiet sky full of stars, Selah closed her eyes and whispered something only the stars could hear. Thank you. A soft rain fell outside the little house as Selah sat on the porch, wrapped in a warm blanket. Drops tapped gently on the roof, and the trees swayed with the wind. Her hands rested over her stomach. Every day, the new life growing inside her reminded her that she was no longer the same. Ethan stepped outside, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one to Selah, then sat beside her. Neither of them spoke for a while. They just watched the rain. Finally, Selah broke the silence. The Empire has sent 5 messages in the last 2 days. Ethan nodded. I know. I saw the alerts. Are you going to answer them? Not yet, she said softly. They didn't care about me before. Now they want something. He looked at her gently. You don't have to go back. This is your home now. Selah looked down at her tea. I know. But I also know how the Empire thinks. They will not stop. Not when something this important happens. News had spread across systems. People spoke in wonder, in fear, in hope. A royal Zyran princess once thought unable to carry children was now expecting a child with a human. It was more than a medical mystery. It was a symbol. Something impossible had become real. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a threat, doctor. Harper had run more scans and confirmed the pregnancy was progressing well. The child was healthy. Its genetic code was something never seen before, balanced, stable, and alive. I want to go back, Selah said. Suddenly, just for a short time, they need to see me. Ethan looked at her in silence. You're sure? She nodded. They need to see that I am not afraid. This child is not shame, but something more. Ethan took a deep breath. If you're going, I'm going with you. She turned to him with wide eyes. You'd do that? Of course, he said. You're not facing them alone, not anymore. 3 days later, they arrived at the edge of the Empire. A royal ship greeted them and led them through controlled space. When Selah stepped off the transport, the atmosphere changed. Nobles stared. Guards stood still. Whispers spread like wildfire. Malo was no longer a forgotten princess. She was the center of attention. Inside the grand palace, the empress sat on her throne. Her eyes were cold, her face unreadable. Selah walked slowly across the great hall, her head held high. Ethan walked beside her. You return? The empress said calmly. And you bring this. This, Selah said, resting her hand on her stomach, is my child. Gasps echoed through the hall. A human child. Noble spat. Half. Human, Selah corrected. Half Zyran. Fully alive. The empress narrowed her eyes. This is no place for emotion. You disobeyed sacred law. This union is forbidden. Forbidden because it scares you, Selah said. Because it brings change. But changes come whether you accept it or not. Silence fell over the court. Ethan spoke then. His voice was calm but strong. I didn't steal your princess. She chose to live freely, and this child wasn't made from power. It was made from care. Many nobles looked uncomfortable. Others looked thoughtful. Only the empress remained cold. What do you want? She asked as Sa raised her chin. I want my child to have a place. Not as a secret, not as shame, but as a part of both worlds. The empress stood slowly. And if we say no, Ethan stepped forward. Then we leave. And your people will. Remember that you turned your back on hope. There was a long pause. Finally, the Empress waved her hand. Take them to the guest wing. We will decide in time. That night, Sayla and Ethan stayed in the same palace she had grown up in. The halls looked the same, but they felt different now. Colder. Heavier. You were brave, Ethan said as they sat near the fireplace. Sa shook her head. I was scared. But I didn't want that fear to lead me. It didn't, he said. You let it. The next day, the Empire held a private council. Doctors confirmed the child was real and healthy. Historians checked old scrolls for prophecies and laws. Priests argued, soldiers stayed quiet. Some wanted to take the child away. Some wanted to hide it. But others, especially the younger ones, spoke of a future beyond old rules. On the third day, the Empress called Sayla again. We will not harm you, she said. We cannot deny what is inside you. But the Empire is not ready to accept this. Child as royal. Sayla nodded. I never asked for a crown, only respect. The Empress looked at Ethan. You are strange, but you are loyal. He said nothing. Just stood still, holding Sayla's hand. The Empress turned away. Leave when? You wish. As they prepared to go, one figure appeared at their door. It was the Empress, without guards, without formality. She looked at Sayla's stomach with quiet eyes. I never had time to be a mother, she said softly. Sayla was too surprised to speak. The Empress nodded. I hope you do better. Then she turned and left without another word. Sayla sat down. Slowly, her heart full of thoughts, Ethan placed his hand over hers. What did that mean? Maybe she said it meant goodbye. Or maybe a beginning. The sun on the Empire's capital world was always bright, but that morning felt softer. Sayla stood on the palace balcony, dressed in a simple robe. The air smelled like blooming flowers. Below, the gardens were quiet. She looked out with a calm face, though her thoughts were not quiet at all. Behind her, Ethan sat at the table, writing something in his notebook. He had started keeping notes about the child, the visit, the people they had met. Sayla smiled as she watched him. His presence made everything feel lighter. You've been quiet since the meeting, he said without looking up. I'm thinking, Sayla replied. About what happens next. You mean after we leave? She nodded. Yes. The Empress allowed us to go in peace. She did not try to take the child. It was more than I expected. But now, everyone is watching. News of her return had reached every corner of the Empire. Millions had seen the images of the princess with the human ambassador. Millions more had heard the words spoken in the royal court. Some called her brave. Some called her a mistake. People keep asking for interviews, Ethan said. Some want to invite you to speak. Others want to test the baby. Sayla frowned. They see a miracle, but they still treat it like a puzzle to solve. What? Do you want, Sayla? Ethan asked, finally closing his notebook. She took a deep breath. I want to live freely. I want to raise my child without fear. I want to show both species that this new life isn't a problem. It's a chance, he nodded. Then let's make sure your voice is heard. Later that day, Sayla agreed to attend a public discussion gathering where leaders, scientists, and normal citizens could listen to her speak. It would be held in the Great Crystal Hall, where old traditions were usually honored. Now it would be used for something new. As she entered the hall, thousands of eyes turned toward her. The hall was filled with aliens of all ages, some in noble robes, some in worker clothes, and a few humans who had been allowed to attend. Ethan walked beside her, silent but steady. Her hand rested on her stomach as she stepped to the center. Platform. A soft hum filled the hall as the speaker system activated. Sa began, her voice calm but clear. I stand before you not as a symbol of shame, but as proof of hope. I was sent away because I could not give life. Now I carry it. Not because of science or power or control, but because of kindness. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some of you fear what this child means. You fear change. You fear that your laws, your knowledge, your old ways are no longer enough. And maybe, you're right. Silence. But fear does not need to become hate. It can become learning. It can become growth. This child is not an insult. This child is a bridge. One of the older scientists stood and asked, "What if the child's biology is unstable? What if it creates problems for others?" Sayla answered without anger. "Then we care for it. We guide it, like any parent would." A young Zyren girl stood up and said, "I was told humans are dangerous, but you don't look afraid of him." Sayla smiled. "I was afraid of many things, but Ethan was never one of them. He gave me peace when my people gave me silence." Ethan, hearing his name, looked around nervously. Then, to everyone's surprise, he stepped forward. "I didn't do anything special," he said. "I just treated her like a person. Maybe that's all it takes to start something good." More whispers, some nods. The crowd slowly changed from tense to thoughtful. People started asking better questions about the baby's future, about life on the human colony, about how two different people could build a life together. When the talk ended, Sayla stepped down. Many in the crowd stood and bowed. Not because of her title, but because they respected her now. That evening, Sayla and Ethan sat by the palace fountain. The sky above was painted with colors from the twin moons. Firelights danced on the water. "You did something big today," Ethan said. "I just spoke," Sayla replied. "You did more than speak. You moved hearts." She looked down at her hands. "I hope that's true, but I know not everyone will accept this." "No," Ethan said, "but some will, and that's how change begins." A small sound came from the garden path. A group of young Zyrenes approached, their eyes wide. One of them, a boy, held out a small crystal flower. "For your child," he said shyly. Chalet took the flower, touched by the gesture. "Thank you." The children smiled and ran off, laughing. Sayla turned to Ethan, her eyes bright. "Maybe the next generation will understand better than the last," maybe Ethan said, "especially if they grow up seeing you as their example." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I'm tired. Let's go rest," he said gently. As they walked back to their room, side by side, something in the stars above felt different. Maybe the universe itself was paying attention. Now, and maybe, just maybe, it approved. The palace corridors were quieter than usual. Sayla moved through them with careful steps, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. The pregnancy was growing, and with it came both hope and worry. She could feel the weight of expectation, just from her people, but from herself. Ethan walked beside her, always steady and calm. They had spent weeks preparing for the next challenge, the official trial. The Empire wanted to judge Sayla for her choice, to live with a human, to carry. A child, they said, should not exist. The trial was set in the Grand Hall. It was a place where laws were declared and fates were decided. Many nobles and priests had gathered, their faces stern and eyes cold. They believed tradition was under threat. Sayla stepped forward, her heart steady but loud in her chest.
Ethan
Stood behind her silent support. The head judge, a tall alien with sharp eyes, spoke first. "Princess Sayla, you have broken sacred law by uniting with a human. Your child is a symbol of betrayal to our people. How do you respond?" Sayla took a deep breath. "I stand before you as a living proof that love and choice are stronger than fear. My child is not betrayal. My child is hope." Priest rose, voice sharp. "This union defies nature. It is an abomination." "No," Sayla said, voice calm but firm. "It is a blessing. A new life born from respect and kindness. Not from conquest or force." Murmurs spread through the hall. Some shifted uncomfortably, others whispered agreement. Ethan stepped forward. "Your laws may be old, but people are not. We change. We grow." Punishing Sayla would punish progress. A young noble spoke up. "What of the Empire's future? Can it accept such change?" "It must," Sayla said, "or risk fading into darkness." The trial lasted for hours. Arguments rose and fell like waves. Some tried to break her spirit. Others tried to protect her at one point. A healer showed the scans of the child healthy, growing strong, a bridge between two worlds. Finally, the head judge called for silence. We will not decide today. Empire must reflect. Sayla felt relief wash over her. It was not a victory, but it was not defeat. After the trial, she walked with Ethan in the palace gardens. Flowers bloomed in bright colors, as if celebrating the small victory. You were amazing, Ethan said. You spoke with courage. I was scared, Sayla admitted, but I knew I had to try. They sat by a small pond. Sayla touched her stomach softly. This child is more than me. It's the future. Ethan smiled, and it will have two families waiting to love it. Suddenly, a messenger arrived with a sealed letter. Sayla opened it carefully. It was from the Empress. We will watch and wait, it said. But know this. You have changed more than you realize. Sayla looked at Ethan. Change is coming. He nodded, and we will face it together. Days passed, and Sayla's belly grew rounder. The bond between her and Ethan deepened. They shared quiet moments, reading stories, watching stars, dreaming of a peaceful future. One evening, a group of young aliens came to visit. They were curious and kind, eager to meet the princess who had changed the empire. Sayla smiled as she showed them the garden, the stars, and told stories of two worlds. Will the child be like us? One girl asked. The child will be unique, Sayla said. But that is a strength. The children laughed and played, free of old fears. As the time to give birth grew near, tension in the empire also rose. Some still opposed the idea of the child. Rumors whispered of secret plans to take the baby away. Sa and Ethan remained vigilant but hopeful. One night, as the twin moons shone brightly, Sayla felt a sudden pain. Ethan was at her side instantly. It's time, she whispered. They moved quickly to the palace medical wing, where the best healers waited. Hours passed. Filled with hope and fear, then, with a gentle cry, the child was born. Small hands, bright eyes, live and strong. La held the baby close, tears streaming down her face. Ethan smiled through tears. Our miracle. News spread like wildfire. The empire could no longer deny what had come to life. Weeks later, the empress visited quietly. No guards, no ceremony. She approached Sayla and the child. I was wrong to doubt, she said softly. Sayla looked up, surprised but calm. This child is not just yours. It belongs to all of us. Maybe it can teach us how to be better, the empress's words were. Not a full acceptance, but a start. Sayla smiled gently. That is all I hope for. The child slept peacefully in her arms, a symbol of a new dawn. The days after the birth were filled with new emotions for Sayla and Ethan. The child, whom they named Laran, grew quickly, with bright eyes that seemed to shine with curiosity about both worlds. Sayla held Laran often, marveling at the tiny fingers. In soft breath, she felt a strength inside her she had never known. This child was more than a miracle, it was a promise of something better. The empire was still cautious. Some nobles whispered behind closed doors. Some priests prayed for change. The empress herself remained silent most days, watching quietly from afar. But Sayla and Ethan refused to hide. They chose to live openly, moving between the human colony and the alien capital, showing Lyron the beauty of both cultures. One afternoon, Sayla stood in the palace garden, watching Lyron play with children from many races. The laughter was soft, music breaking old fears. Ethan joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. You've done more than anyone thought possible. She smiled softly. It wasn't just me. It was us and this child. Laron looked up, reaching for her mother's face. Sayla laughed, feeling the warmth spread through her. Over time, the empire began to change. Schools taught about different species, laws grew kinder, and hope replaced fear in many hearts. Some said it was because of the child. Others said it was because of Sayla's courage, but all agreed that something new had begun. The Empress called Sayla to her chambers one evening. The room was quiet, filled with soft light. "I have watched you and your child," the Empress said slowly, "and I see a future I had not dared to imagine." Sayla nodded. "It is a future for all of us." The Empress reached out, placing a hand on Sayla's. "Thank you for teaching me that love is stronger than law." Tears filled Sayla's eyes. "Thank you for seeing." From that day, the Empress supported Sayla openly, helping to unite the empire in ways no one expected. Years passed. Laron grew tall and wise, respected by both humans and aliens. The child was a living bridge, teaching everyone that differences could be strength. Sayla and Ethan watched proudly as their family became a symbol of hope and change. One night, under the same stars where Sayla had once whispered her secret prayer, she held Ethan's hand and smiled. "We made it," she said softly. "Together," he replied. The galaxy was different now. Not because of wars or power, but because one princess and one human dared to believe in a better tomorrow. And their child was proof that sometimes the most unexpected stories have the greatest endings.